This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by Linode, high-performance cloud hosting for everyone. Visit linode.com/MacVoices and take $20 off your first server package. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we're back on the road to Macstock, talking to some of the presenters, some of the exhibitors, pretty much anybody we think you should know before you get to Woodstock, Illinois, because you are coming to Woodstock, Illinois, right? Right? Yes, I hope so, because we're going to have a blast at Macstock, and I know you will too. So please plan to join us. We'll talk more about that later. This time, though, I get to welcome a first-time guest to MacVoices and also a Macstock presenter, Mr. Josh Rensch. Josh, welcome. It's great to have you.
Thanks, man. It'd be cool. It's cool. I didn't even know there was a podcast that went into Macstock. It was like all of a sudden Potter goes, "Hey, do you want to be on this podcast?" I'm like, cool.
Yeah, well, and it was nice of you to call in the whole way from orbit. I like this.
Yeah. It looks better than the mess behind me, so that's why we do it.
I like it. I like it. I get the sense you're going to be one of those fun guests. There's no question. Since this is your first time on MacVoices, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and what your tech cred is, if you will.
I'm an engineer. Well, partly. I've been an engineer since 2001. I started at IBM, and I've worked at IBM and Lockheed Martin, Intel, and Global Foundries, some of the largest companies out there in the chip development world. I'm a verification engineer, so it means I get paid to break things, which is kind of fun. The designers get to design the chips and make it all pretty, and I get to go in there and with a hammer and break it. Well, it's not really a hammer. It's software that breaks their chip, and then they go and fix it. So I make them better by breaking it. I kind of use the analogy of a book editor. Like Stephen King doesn't release a book without an edit, and designers shouldn't release their code without an editor, and I'm their editor. Been doing that for a long time, and I also do professional speaking. I talk about special needs parenting and team building and engineering soft skills. So, because engineers typically don't have a lot of communication skills, and there's that hinders them a lot, and so I'm trying to help them be better with that.
That's quite a diverse set of activities, if you will. Quite a diverse set.
Yeah. So when I was a child or in high school, I had a scholarship to be a journalist, and my father said, "No, you're going to be an engineer." And he threatened to disown me if I didn't be an engineer. So I became an engineer, and I chose computers because he hated computers. He wanted me to be a mechanical or civil engineer. So I spited him and said, "I'm going to be a computer engineer," at which point he said it didn't even really exist. So then I proceeded to have the dean call him and tell him, yes, indeed, computer engineering isn't a degree. And yes, indeed, the school offers it. So then I became a computer engineer. And it kind of went from there. And I got a job at IBM out of college. I went to college in South Dakota, South Dakota School of Mines and Technology. And I've always been able to communicate pretty well. My dad said I used to be able to sell a nice ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves because he owns a jewelry store, and I would work for Sturgis. He lived in Black Hills, South Dakota, and the Sturgis motorcycle rally comes around, and he'd have me go work there, and I just sell the hell out of jewelry. And he's like, "You don't even like jewelry," and I go, "Yep, but I can sell it," because I believe my dad designed them and stuff, so it was really personal to me. He designed my wedding ring for my wife and my daughter. I mean, not my wife and my daughter. My wife and me, not my wife and my daughter. That was dumb. And that's been really a cool thing for me, is that my wedding ring is designed by my dad. And so I sold jewelry, and he always said I could sell stuff. If ever engineering doesn't work, go into sales. And from there, I kind of got into speaking a little bit through Toastmasters, and was the guy who became the lead in verification for the group that I belonged to. And so I was the one presenting all the time to our customers and our designers saying, "Hey, this is what we're doing. Hey, this is what we're doing." And after a while I got good at it, and I started getting paid for it. That's kind of yeah, it's weird. And so a lot of companies, when they hire me, they go, yeah, you can do your speaking over there, but we just need you for your engineering stuff. So it's been an interesting journey.
I would say so. It sounds like it. So with the engineering background, with the speaking background, and all that, it makes absolutely perfect sense that you're coming to Macstock to talk about cooking.
Correct. That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
Because the minute he said create, I thought of cooking. When
Really?
Potter brought up that topic, and I said cooking. Because I knew people, and I already know this, there's several people talking about writing, there's going to be a person talking about presentations, and there's probably somebody about video or camera. I haven't looked at all the presenters yet. I've been in the middle of a job change, so I've been not paying attention to a lot of things because I've been just trying to focus on, I have the speaking gig with the Macstock thing, and then I have my new job. So I've been trying to focus on those two things and giving some time with my daughter. And we got into cooking, my wife and I. So my daughter was born 3 months early. And for anybody who's had that circumstances knows kind of the problem afterwards, which is for 2 years, her immune system is compromised. So we're not really allowed, not allowed is not the right word, but they recommend highly not to go anywhere, to kind of stay at home and keep her isolated from people because her immune system isn't great. And we needed something to do because we live in Minnesota, which is is kind of like Macstock in the sense of it's really, really cold, and in the winter it's really a lot of snow. So we're like, what do we do? And I didn't really want to watch Barney or any of the other children's shows, so we got onto the Food Network, and then we started just practicing playing around with cooking. And I'd always been a pretty good cook. I came from my dad single parent raised me and my brother, and I was the cook, but I got better. And so we just started cooking. And then my first not professional talk, but my first big talk where I spoke in front of 1,000 people was a talk on creating bacon. So 4 years ago, I learned how to make custom bacon from scratch. And yes, I told you, Chuck, this is going to be an interesting journey. So I make custom bacon, and bacon is motivation with a universal adapter hooked to it, unless you're Muslim, vegan, or Orthodox Jew. And even some of my friends who are Jewish eat my bacon, which I find kind of funny. I'm like, shouldn't you not be? She goes, don't tell anybody. And I'm just sitting there going, I'm not going to say nothing. I don't have those kind of contacts. But yeah, I make bacon. I make bourbon maple, black pepper, bay leaf, garlic. So I get the pork from either a friend who's a pig farmer or buy it at Costco or whatever, pork belly. And then I make bacon and I cure it and I smoke it. And I smoke cheeses and eggs as well. Because once you smoke one thing, once you start cold smoking, you can cold smoke lots of things that you never thought of. And so I started smoking bacon. And this guy said, hey, I'll let you talk in front of at Ignite if you talk about making bacon. I'm like, bacon is easy to make. It's criminally easy. So I actually used that. And the whole premise was bacon gets the invite and I'm just its +1 to parties. And the whole premise of the speech is if I can't be the hero and I don't want to be the sidekick, then there's only one role to play in this superhero thing is the villain. And the whole thing is about me telling the recipe on how to make bacon in 5 minutes. And it was a really big hit and a lot of people liked it. And I had a lot of people ask me, hey, do you talk about other things? And I started talking about other things and I started talking about engineering because I built a couple of very successful teams for a couple different companies. And using a lot of the skills I used in speaking and empathy and all that kind of stuff, which engineers aren't supposed to know anything about, and was able to be productive. So I firmly believe that empathy and trust are big things in team building, and engineers don't like that. They go, well, Chuck knows how to build this widget. I only need to know is how to build the widget. And I go, but that widget talks to this other widget. And if Chuck can't talk to, or so-and-so can't talk to Chuck, we can't build the widget. The widget they don't work together. So yeah, so I did the bacon and we were always doing meal planning. We were using paprika. And one of the things that came out of it, talking to Mike Potter about it, was with the cooking stuff. He said, what's so cool about it? And I go, well, the problem is I had to create a workflow for my wife. and creating a workflow for somebody else that will, like, two people will use, that is a kind of a tricky thing. Because from what I realized, most of the people at Macstock are Mac power users. I mean, I'm not trying to steal Sparky's trademark, but well, you don't go to Macstock if you're like, I'm kind of a fan. Maybe I use PCs, but I've looked at the Mac. You go to Macstock because you really like Macs and you do some really cool things with them. And we thought that the idea of sharing how to build a workflow for non-power users was a cool idea. And so I'm using cooking as a vehicle to explain how to create workflows that other people will use.
Today's edition of Mac Voices is brought to you by Linode. You can build it on Linode. Here are the facts about Linode. Linode is a virtual cloud server service that lets you build the server you need in the cloud. And not just any server, but a server that suits your specific needs. From a $5 per month Nanode plan, the whole way up to a full-blown, dedicated, custom server with native SSD storage, a 40 gigabit network, and an industry-leading processor. Get up and running in a matter of minutes, not hours or days. Pick a plan, pick a distro, pick a location. That's it. Your server is online. Speaking of location, Linode has 10 worldwide data centers, including the newest in Toronto and one opening soon in Mumbai. So if geography is an issue for you, it isn't an issue with Linode. Linode also comes with a ton of one-click installs for things like WordPress, VPN servers, Minecraft servers, and many more. So getting up and running with a specific type of server is quick and easy. Need multiple servers? Not only can Linode handle that for you, but their easy-to-use dashboard makes management easy. Just as easy as their monitoring and backing up of your server. And of course, service is always an issue. Linode has 24/7 customer support that is always just a phone call away. Now you know the facts about Linode. Okay, maybe not all the facts, but that should get you started. Visit linode.com/MacVoices to round out your knowledge, and while you're there, use the code MacVoices to get $20 credit on your first Linode server. That's $20 credit at linode.com/MacVoices, and a big thanks to Linode for their support of MacVoices. And I'm glad you took us through all that, because that's brilliant. Because everyone can identify with cooking. I mean, at some basic level, even if you can burn boiled water, you still can identify with that.
You have to eat. If you're a certain age, you've eaten at some point in your life.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right about the workflows, because I've tried to I have developed workflows for folks at my office and for different things. And sometimes the odd ways that, well, odd to me and probably odd to you, but the way they look at things really does teach you about just how bad a workflow can be if you don't approach it from their standpoint. So I love this idea.
Yeah, because I found out with my wife, so I tried to create a financial workflow, and she rebelled against it, and it made it really difficult. And not because of anything other than I made it too complicated for her. And I needed to simplify things. And I think that's one of the key things that Mac power user people need to do. I talk about this in my speech, and I don't mind sharing because my speech will be different as it goes along. A friend of mine, in engineering, a friend of mine and I, we learned this new technique, and it was really cool. It was really, really cool. And we were using it all over the place. But then we had to go explain it to somebody. And him and I had an understanding because we were both power users for this programming thing. And we tried to explain it to people, and people couldn't grok it. They just grok. For those of you who don't know what grok means, understand. They just couldn't understand it. And we're sitting there, crap. And we rewrote it. We rewrote all that code to make it. It was more code. It was a little more cumbersome, but people could follow it more. So sometimes when you do create workflows, you either have to make it a little bit, not complicated, but more time consuming so that other people can grasp it. And I think that sometimes we get too lined up with our keyboard maestro plus Hazel plus OmniFocus plus this, and whoa, we got all this stuff going on. And everybody's like, what did it just do? I don't, well, it does a lot of things. I mean, take for example, I have a trainer, and I use the workflow app now. What's it called? Shortcuts, Siri Shortcuts app, to
Right.
create this idea of when I go weigh myself with the body fat analysis and stuff, that it tracks, it captures that into a document for me, and then sends an email to my trainer. And my trainer watched me put this in once, and he's like, holy heck, that was, I mean, and from a workflow perspective, it's pretty easy, but he was trying to understand how I could hit one button and it did like 4 things. And a lot of people just don't want to spend the energy to be that power user guy or girl or gender non-specific. They just don't want to be a power user. They don't care. They just care about their problem and how to fix it. And so what came about was my wife and I both like cooking, and we both share the kitchen. How do we do that? How do I know that when I go to cook, there's cumin still? How do I know when she goes to cook that I haven't used all the other spices? I mean, we needed that. Spices is a really easy example, but there's stuff in your pantry, there's stuff that you're making, and you need to know. Or better yet, we both have jobs that sometimes call us away. So she might be in the middle of cooking and then say, "Oh crap, I have to go into work." I'm on step 3 in paprika. I mean, how do we know those things if we don't share a common workflow so we can go, oh, you're in step 3? Okay, now I just keep going down the step 4, step 5, step 6, step 7 kind of thing. If that makes sense. I think it does.
I think it makes a lot of sense because listen, everybody that's watching this has a workflow that when they get out of bed in the morning, if whether they're working or whether they're retired, whether it's, you get out of bed, you go to the shower, you brush your teeth, in the case of the guys, you shave,
Mm-hmm.
and then put on your tie or put on whatever you're wearing and then get out the door. We all have those kind of workflows that you don't think of as workflows. Call them routines, call them habits, call them what you will.
Yeah.
But if you tried to write that up for someone, they're going to do it differently. I mean, the old thing of, do you put on your left sock or your right sock or your pants first? Well, somewhere you made that decision, and it's usually probably pretty consistent.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody else may do it completely differently.
Yeah, I mean, if the goal is at the end of the day for us to be able to put healthy meals on the table, if that's my goal, not to win, not to show how smart I am, but the goal is to put something on the kitchen table, then what's effective is what works for both of us. It's not what effective is what works just for me. I like to use the analogy. I learned this from another book. What is it? Social Styles Handbook. But everybody crosses their arms a certain way. I mean, when you go to naturally cross your arms, you naturally put one arm over the other. And when you shake your arms out and try to put it the other way, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel quite the same. And it's slightly uncomfortable. It's not uncomfortable like I'm in walking on fire because I'm going to a Tony Robbins event. It's more of uncomfortable like, this is kind of awkward. And if you do that and you get practice crossing your arms a different way, and it makes it better for the people around you, cross your arms the other way if that's all that matters. If only thing that matters is your comfort, then cross the arms the way you want to. But if, like for me, we have a family that we're trying to work together, and I will cross my arms the other way if I need to make the family's dynamic work better. I mean, we've all heard the stories of guys who don't put the toilet seat down or whatever. And I'm like, if it makes everybody else more comfortable, what does it take? Why not spend the minute and do it the way your partner, whoever it may be, would appreciate? I don't know. I mean, that's the kind of thought process I come from. And so, yeah, that's my talk. I mean, so I guess we have 2 talks, which is kind of weird. So the first talk is going to be more generic about workflowy, and the next one is going to be my kitchen workflow. Because I'm trying to make sure that at least the general talk is more applicable to everybody. I'm going to use kitchen as a vehicle, of course, but I am going to go into more depth of the workflow itself in my 45-minute workshop thing. I'm going up against Brett Terpstra. He's doing his talk on the main stage. I'm in the other room. So I'm pretty sure Brett is going to have most of the audience. I'm okay with that. So I'll be able to be more, more, how do you say, loose with my presentation on that side.
Well, the great thing about the size of Macstock and all is that, all the presentations are intimate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even the ones on the main stage end up being intimate. It's such a great event. I do want to ask the one question about the presentation, and I don't want us to do the presentation, but
yeah.
When you're talking about the workflows, are you going to be demonstrating tools to do the workflows?
There will be some tool. The first talk is not going to be a lot of tools.
Okay.
The second talk is going to be more tools. The first talk is more of the considerations you need to come into it to build a workflow for other people. It's going to be more about the listening and more about, hey, how do you go about designing a work before you even look at tools? What are some basic concepts you should go into thinking about designing workflows for others? And that's what the first talk is going to be, because the tools don't, I mean, it's like David Allen, Getting Things Done guy, says the tools don't matter, and they really don't. What you really need to do is because you may not have access to the same tools I have. I mean, from a Mac's perspective, most of my tools are come on a stock Mac, except for Paprika, which is the cooking, which is the recipe every manager. But um, the workflows themselves really are personal, right? I mean, as you kind of said, do you put your left sock or your right sock on first? I mean, you may have a problem with your knee, so putting on the right sock is much more harder. So you put on the left sock so you get done faster, and then you can move on to the right sock. I mean, I could tell you what my workflow is, and I will in the second talk, but the first talk is really just a vehicle of how to design workflows that fill both persons' needs. And that's, I think, one of the things. Because, we're Mac people. We get so caught up in our coolness of our Mac. I mean, I just started my new job, and I just got a brand new MacBook Pro, 15-inch MacBook Pro, top of the line, tricked out everything. And I'm sitting here wanting to tweak it and play with it and everything else, but I still have to get my job done. So, I'm doing manual work, because I didn't have the time to install all my Keyboard Maestro shortcuts and stuff. So I'm trying to, as I run into the problems that I have, meaning my fingers are like, oh, that keystroke is not there, I need to go to my other Apple, pull it away. And I'm actually nuking and paving. I'm not restoring from a backup, because my other Mac has a bunch of cruft on it that I want to clean out. Like, for some reason, it still thinks the PDF Pen Pro, I have like 6 versions of PDF Pen Pro, and they've all been deleted and they've all been uninstalled except for one, but it keeps wanting to send it to one and says, I'm sorry, that app doesn't exist anymore. And I'm sitting there going, I've tried to modify registry, I've gone into the backside, I can't fix it. So I'm just going to start over and install as I need.
That's the way to do it. No question. This is going to be a fun talk. I think I really, it appeals to me so much, the idea of using the cooking as the common ground that everybody can relate to. I think that's great.
I mean, even people who don't cook. I mean, Mike was concerned that people would be going back to the Pokemon Go. He goes, we need to make sure that they're not going back to Pokemon Go. And I go, if you've ever seen me speak, because I've sent him several videos of me speak, if you can honestly not pay attention to what I'm doing, I'm going to applaud you. I mean, I'm sure if you actively try to not pay attention, I'm pretty dynamic. I had to present at Lockheed, I had to present to 100 engineers, and I had only one nodder for 3 hours. Nodders is somebody who's fallen asleep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm very dynamic. I'm very energetic, and I'm very explosive on stage. And I want to connect with everybody out in my audience. I just love my audience. So, I mean, yeah, I'm hoping that the vehicle works. And if you don't cook, I mean, you've had to have. There is nothing that. Well, let me rephrase. There are very few things that have been accomplished in this world that didn't have multiple people involved in them. I mean, even if you look at Michael Phelps is the Olympic swimmer. He has a nutritionist, a trainer, acupuncturist, all these different people that do their work. Stephen King has a publicist, an agent, an editor. I mean, he writes the book, but he has all these other people that help him do everything else that involved in his life. So there are very few endeavors in this world that are accomplished solo. And so that means we're constantly involved with other people, which means we're constantly creating workflows between us and how we communicate. Right now, I mean, I don't know what's kept on the recording, but you and I worked for a while to get this set up so we could talk to each other, with me having the star background because my background was too light, all these different things. And we do that because we want it to make the best product possible. And that product requires two people. I look at things as there's too many things that require multiple people. And if you know how to to create a workflow together, you're going to be more successful.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun talk. I'm anxious to hear, to get inside your head and listen to what's rattling around in there.
Oh, well, it's scary, actually.
Well, it might be scary, but I'm afraid. It'll be entertaining, if nothing else.
Yeah, my boss, so the company I'm at is 4 people. I'm the 4th employee-ish. And, I mean, they had another employee, but he died, unfortunately. And I'm the 4th employee now. And it's just been public. We just made it public that I've been hired this week, yesterday. And they had a meeting with a bunch of people who used to work with me, and they go, "You got him? How'd you do that?" They were kind of amazed. And I go, I was talking to my boss, I'm like, "They didn't warn you against me?" Because I'm always worried, because I'm high energy, I'm really dynamic. And he's like, "No, they said that was a great hire." I'm like, yes. Because when other people tell your boss it was smart for him to hire you, that is not related to the company, that's always a good thing.
Absolutely. So I'm sitting here crossing my arms trying to figure out, okay, now which is the
well, you shake your hands up. I mean, you stand up, you shake your arms, you cross them, then you shake your arms again and cross them the other way, and that's how you do things. I mean, yeah, it's just a really interesting visual example of making yourself uncomfortable to make the other person comfortable. And, it's give and take, right? It's compromise. I've been married now 16 plus years, not quite 17. 16 plus years. I've been with her since 2001. And there's constantly a give and take thing. And you just have to do that. You have to compromise, and you have to figure out how to work together, because you both have the same goal, which is having a successful life together. And as long as you have that goal, I mean, hopefully she has that goal. I am not a mind reader. I am not Dionne Warwick, psychic friend.
On the next edition of MacVoices, we'll have Josh's wife on to find out what the real plan is.
That's the real plan. But I mean, you have to go with what you see, and as long as you do that, you have a better opportunity to be successful. Just trying to be, slightly uncomfortable, so that everybody else is around you is comfortable. So, as an engineer, what do they say? The extroverted engineers looks at your shoes. Isn't that the joke? Something like, how can you tell an extroverted engineer? They look at your shoes instead of their own. And it's kind of a gag around this. And I took a lot of training. I spent a lot of hours training myself to be able to talk to engineers and be calm. So on a scale of 1 to 10 from an energy perspective, my natural is a 13. I'm just like, boom. And a lot of engineers that is taken back by that. I mean, most of the time when I talk to engineers, I have to prove my street cred, because I have several patents, a bunch of white papers, but people talk to me and see me and they're like, "You're not an engineer." And because I have that energy level. And so I spend a lot of energy to get to like an 8 or a 9, and I still make a lot of engineers uncomfortable. But it's again, I'm trying to be, and it's not comfortable for me. I spend a lot of energy not being comfortable so that I can be more comfortable and more effective around the engineers I hang out with and work with.
Interesting. Well, so where do you have social media presences, Josh? Places folks could go to learn more before we get to Macstock?
I have a YouTube channel. It's my name. You can watch some of my other speeches. I will videotape. I think we get a videotape of the Macstock things, but I will also record it because I already asked Mr. Potter about that. I'm on YouTube there. I'm on Showit, SHOUIT. Pretty much all over the place. On Instagram and Twitter on that, and then of course Facebook and LinkedIn or just Josh Rensch. But I do have a website. It's down right now because I'm reworking it. I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. Because one of the things that was confusing to most people was I'm into a lot of things, and I talked about a lot of things, and it was really hard for people to understand what my site was doing because like there was a section on. I also have written for Dungeons and Dragons, the role playing game. So I've written for them. So there was stuff on role playing games and Dungeons and Dragons. There was things on making bacon and cooking. There was things on leadership and team building, and then there was things on special needs parenting. And everybody was like, "Your site is very confusing." So at some point it'll be back up and it'll be joshrensch.com. And those are the places to get a hold of me. Feel free to drop me a note on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. I'm around. And yeah.
Good. Well, I'm looking forward to the presentation, and I hope that everybody else is, and that they'll check out some of your other presences. But before we do it, of course, it's time to do the quick pitch. Macstock 2019 is where you go to register. You'll get to see Josh. You'll get to see Brett Terpstra. You'll get to see Wally Cherwinski, Allison Sheridan. You'll get to see just a whole lot of amazing people. To save a little bit of money off that, however, Mike has given us speaker codes. Josh, your speaker code is?
Mac Kitchen, all one word, all lowercase.
Perfect. Of course, mine is MacVoices. I don't care who you use. Use Josh's, but save a little bit of money. But definitely come to Woodstock, Illinois, Macstock at the end of July. We're going to have a blast, and we really want you there. And you'll learn something about cooking from Josh.
Yeah, I hope so. I actually tried to get him to let me make bacon on the stage, but he won't let me do it. If you guys have a problem with that, talk to Mr. Potter.
Probably has something to do with the facility, but
I'm sure it does. I'm sure.
No cooking on stage, Josh.
No cooking on stage. It would be so like having cooking going on stage would be just like while I'm doing this would be just awesome. But I understand the zoning laws and all that crazy nonsense.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see you in Woodstock.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here. Thank you. Okay. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. One more time, Macstock 2019. Josh's code is Mac Kitchen. Mine is MacVoices. No matter which one you use, we want to see you in Woodstock. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.